Howdy folks, I am back and I'm going to talk about uh, the pages I have for sale from Group B. These all sell for $100 and these are all, I think pretty much all um, single page, not necessarily single page comics, but just kind of a regular uh, 11 by 17 or thereabouts uh, page from a comic that I made. Uh, Sometimes it's an excerpt from a longer story, and sometimes it is just a self-contained page. Um, so this is Group A was more of a random bunch of stuff. Uh, Group B is I think mostly all just regular sized comics from mostly from different issues of Dregs, because that's when I would have been drawing on Bristol most of the time. So I'm going to try not to ramble quite as much as I did for Group A, because I got a lot of pages to go through here. And let's get started with the cover for Dregs number 2. Um, and that was inspired by a trip I took to Toronto. A funny little feature of this one, you can see the lettering breaking up here along the subheading. That's because that lettering is letratone. It was, rub-on lettering, much like good old Zipatone, where you could add patterns and stuff to your pages by cutting it out and rubbing it on and using a burnishing tool and all that fun stuff. This particular stuff is kind of disintegrating, as you can see. So that's part of the charm of the piece, I guess. These days, of course, I would just put any lettering like that in digitally. So next up we have one. Excuse me. This is actually one of my very oldest comics. It's called Flakes, and it's a one-page story. The text is by a writer named Thompson, who was a friend of mine in the early 90s when I was living in Fredericton with my first wife. I met Kent at a kind of arts group, and we got to talking because I think we both had an interest in comics, and I was doing my master's thesis on comics, and he agreed to be an external reader for it, which was very kind. And one of the things, he was a professor at UNB, and then he retired a little while after that, I believe. And one of the things that he did as a writer was he popularized a micro short story format called the postcard story, basically a story that could be written on the back of a postcard, often inspired by the picture on the other side, or maybe inspired. Kent liked to go to art galleries and just look at a picture and write a story about it. And he collected a few books of these, and this was one of the stories that I enjoyed, called Cornflakes. It's just this kind of inner monologue of a mother worrying about her child, her adult child, I think, who's maybe struggling with their direction in life. Anyway, it's I wouldn't say it's super strong in terms of the quality of the art. My art was pretty rough in 1990, but I think the basic mechanics of telling the story are actually pretty decent. And I don't know. I like seeing these old. I did a few of these based on Kent's short stories, and I don't know if this one was ever actually published anywhere. I'll have to check. Anyway, that's a nice piece, I think. Next up, we have a satirical illustration. I used to kind of do these themes for each issue of Dregs, my old mini comic. So there was the unauthorized autobiography issue, and I think the fourth issue, or I think it wasn't so much that it was a theme for the whole issue. I wanted to, I basically, because I didn't have enough pages for an entire issue of comics that were kind of paying tribute to EC, the old publisher of classic horror comics, and later on Mad Magazine and so on. Anyway, I used to love their old science fiction and horror comics, and I did an illustration basically mashing up that style with a favorite old science fiction movie, The Day the Earth Stood Still. And here's the result. Bad Science, featuring Gort, who's coming to dinner. Another dumb movie joke. Not a bad illustration, though. And a lot of work went into that logo. I can tell you that. I'm honestly shocked on some of these pieces how little correction there is. There's a bit, you can see some correction fluid here, and there's a lot of correction fluid on Gort, because I have a tendency to over ink, even now, certainly then. Anyway, Bad Science. That is, I think that's one of the better pieces I did back then. I used to do a lot of one-page comics because I wanted to be Harvey Kurtzman. And he had a comic in his early days with Marvel or Atlas, whoever it was, called Hey Look, and it was all basically one-page comics that played with the format somehow, or were just very slapsticky, and the same kind of bag of tricks that Kurtzman used in Mad comics. So this is one of the comics that very much follows that model. It was called Pit Stops on the Road to Hell. I did a few of these, but this is the first one, and I would say certainly the best one. And it's basically just a bunch of Evan Dorkin style, more fun gags. Each panel is a gag. So Pit Stops on the Road to Hell, the Escher theme park, the seat between Siskel and Ebert, R.I.P. The Popsicle Stick Museum. There's a little display there that says Stickus Originalis. Jesus Christ. So anyway, Pit Stops on the Road to Hell. Alright, so next up, another Kurtzman-esque page. This one is called Taste Tests. And this is another example of me basically pushing format a little bit. This is a grid of, 20 panels? Yeah. It's meant to emulate a TV commercial. I guess that's how I was kind of getting away with it. You're seeing TV screens, and the picture just keeps changing with the narration down on the bottom, Kyle Baker style. I think it's funny. It's juvenile. Juvenile comic about drinking urine as a sports drink. With the gag here being, as we all know, if it's organic, it's good for you. So, very, very trenchant observational comedy for me there. Okay, next up, this one is another one-pager called Fourth Wall Funnies. And it was, have a look there. And it's very Kurtzman-esque, playing with the format. Guy is daydreaming, and he climbs into his dream. And the boss comes back, and he's like, where the hell did that guy get to? And he's just chilling on the beach instead of being at work. His boss doesn't even talk in words. He just speaks in clocks. It's crazy. Anyway, Fourth Wall Funnies. There were never any more Fourth Wall Funnies, I don't think. It wasn't like some kind of series. Featuring Walter, and I think the Walter there is supposed to be Walter Mitty, reference to a favorite old movie starring Danny Kaye that was after this, not because of this, but later than this, remade by Ben Stiller. Pretty good movie, but very different from the original. Much deeper, shall we say. This page is from 1994. 31 years. And it's, as you can see, it's Bristol. I should really be commenting a bit more, I guess, on the materials. Some people care about that stuff. Here's another one from 1994, another single page. This one has no dialogue. It's called The Misplaced Weekend. And it's basically just about a dude who has a job, just doing not much all weekend, and then going back to work. I think that was kind of reflective of my own routine at the time. Not a bad page. Probably would have benefited from some better division between the panels there. I think they're kind of bleeding into each other. And it's, I don't know. Yeah. Not really sure what the thought was there. Anyway. Maybe the thought was that it is just all a blur. I don't know. I'm forgiving myself for questionable artistic choices. Here's a favorite one. It's called Catharsis Two. There is a Catharsis One, but it's not selected currently for sale. It's also not very interesting, honestly. That's the main reason it's not selected. If you really want it, though, I'll tell you what. I'll sell you Catharsis 1 and 2 for $150. We'll call it a Group C thing. But if you just want Catharsis 2, which I would understand, then it's Group B. It is basically just a weird kind of hero's journey story about an artist, not necessarily me. I think it was just kind of me working through some feelings about being an artist, calling myself that, about how it would feel to be left, for your art to be left behind after you're gone. Yeah. I was thinking about stuff like that in 1992, apparently, when I was 24. 24? Yeah. I'll do some quick math. Yeah, 24. Anyway, it has this weird kind of meta thing going on in the gutters, where I'm saying apologies to this person, apologies to that person, referring to people who I'm swiping from, influenced by, and so on. And it's dedicated to Joe Shuster, which is interesting. I guess because he was kind of boned by the industry. I think there's a certain amount of ambivalence going on here about participating in the comics industry in 1992 when everything is just kind of going. So, yeah. Wondering where it's all going to go. I like the page itself, though. Now, this is actually a 2-page story, but I'm fine with selling it as one because it's not very detailed. It's just a lot of figures with no backgrounds. It's a true story of my brief days in the military, and we were assembling. We were doing some kind of exercise. We were taking rifles apart, putting them back together, and it was a bit of an exercise in teaching us to deny reality in the furtherance of, I don't know, building esprit de corps, I suppose, such as it was. Anyway, I would say the only remarkable thing about this story, apart from like it's 30 years old, it was lettered by my old friend Carrie Smith, who I knew from the Appa Centauri days. She lettered a few stories for me back then because that was something she was interested in. And I always felt myself to be a rather poor letterer, especially compared to her. So that's kind of cool. There aren't many pages of mine where there's basically anyone else but me involved. Um, so yeah, Leading the Blind, 2 pages. And actually, here's another 2-page set. Again, because they're not really story pages. These are actually ads that I made up, just silly little ads for issues 3 and 4, I think, of Dregs. And one is stealing a gag from Daniel Clowes and David Greenberger that they used to do on 8-Ball, where you would ask these kind of man-on-the-street interviews, and eventually like bring it around to your own book. And this other one it's 16 panels, no, 12 panels, of me just going around in silly poses, selling you on why you should buy my mini comic and what a great value for money it is, which is ridiculous. I think I was so down on my own art back then. And actually, I look at it now and I'm like, this isn't too bad. it's not great, but it's okay, especially for the time. And yeah, I was so down on my own artwork back then that I was making up reasons to buy the comic, like, well, there's lots of different stories and genres, and it's a great value compared to other mini comics. And it was such a weird take. Anyway, silly younger me. Anyway, you can get both of those pages together for the price of one. Excuse me. All right. Once again, I'm taking a lot of time. So this page, this is another single-page Kurtzman-esque story called Comics Interruptus. And it's really a little academic story using Western kind of story playing out here, but it's actually talking about narrative and in medias res and stuff like that. Not the strongest drawing. It is, I would say, more Kurtzman-esque than most. You see the kind of line work there and the hatching. Some white correction fluid there. I had to redraw that face. Still not a great face, but imagine what it must have been like before. Anyway, that's that one. Similar deal with this next one, which is called Genius is Pain. This is the second version. The first version was very rough. And this one, I have a little note on the back to myself, which I used to do sometimes. Says it was finished on July the 1st, 1993. This is another silent story about an artist who, for some reason, is kind of painting out in plein air, trying to draw the mountain over there. And she, for some reason, has decided to set up directly underneath a beehive. And the bees come and bother her and start messing up her painting. And she inadvertently winds up with this crazy abstract painting as a result. Just more me working out feelings about art stuff. Lots of hatching. Bit of correction on the face over here again. Yeah, a couple times. Trouble inking faces. H-Town. This is one of the autobiographical stories I alluded to earlier. It is 3 pages. And the third one is inside. And it's basically a true story of when I spent a summer living at my in-laws, my first wife's in-laws, back in the small town where I grew up, Woodstock, New Brunswick, looking for work fruitlessly in the summer of 1995. We eventually moved to St. John, where I did find work, but yeah, this is just about being back there, and it gave me an excuse to go around with my sketchbook and draw some of the local buildings. So if you're into 30-year-old depictions of the town of Woodstock, or just my own feelings of ambivalence about being there, that story is for you. All right, back to a one-pager, and it is called Life Cycle. It's from 1994. It's another silent one, and it's another, kind of Kurtzman-esque high concept comic, basically going through the life cycle of making a comic. So we start with pencils, and this is pencil, ink, more ink, shitty drawings of me, and basically it's all from the point of view of the comic is the idea, being scanned or put in the copier, making copies, packing, opening a bag, maybe it's in a bag, and then the reader is delighted. The reader's got a weird face. One of my trademark early 90s weird faces. But anyway, it's more about the idea than the quality drawing back then. And that is Life Cycle. Another one-pager, 6-panel horror film. Very silly, inspired by my love of bad movies. Basically just doing what they would do years later in Scream, pointing out all of the various tropes that are in horror movies. I always liked this drawing right here with the pile of bodies in the foreground. That pleases me in the way that the old Mad comics please me. That's kind of what I was going for there. So that's fun. And I'm also throwing in, I did a sequel called The World's Shortest Disaster Movie. Exact same idea. It was created on smaller paper with the overlay like the Doomed Love comics were. So that'll be included. Okay. Here's a Kurtzman-esque one-pager, very much about my own doubts as an artist. It's called I Am Shit. And I'm stealing from the best, stealing from Bob Crumb as I slowly melt into a pile of shit. And there's a fly buzzing around. And in each panel, it's just a quote of something that I'm thinking about related to art, or, for example, one of my favorite quotes here at the very end. I wouldn't mind having this at my funeral if anybody is planning such a thing. If I should die, said I to myself, I have left no immortal work behind me, nothing to make my friends proud of my memory, but I have loved the principle of beauty in all things. And if I had time, I would have made myself remembered. Keats. Sad motherfucker. Anyway, that one's from 1994. I Am Shit. It's an old favorite. Let me see here. Leading the Eye. This is another Kurtzman-esque visual, let's fuck around with comics kind of comic. Looks like it's got 16 panels, 20 panels even. Yeah, Jesus Christ. And it's, here I am jumping out of the comic, literally grabbing your eyeball and bringing it on a tour around all the different things you can do in comics and then throwing it back into your head. Makes sense, right? 1993. Fun page. Goofy. Okay, here is one called R.T.F.M. from 1995, and this is based on an old joke that I'm sure must date back 80 years. I do not claim that this is true or that this happened to me, although, it may have. R.T.F.M, by the way, stands for Read the Fucking Manual, which is common tech support language. Or gaming. So this comic is a story about when I worked and managed a battery store in Ontario, and one of my co-workers, Andrew, so we're telling a story about how a guy calls in needing support with something. He's stuck. The computer is telling him to press any key, but he can't find the any key, as if there's a key that says any on it. You press the any key, right? That was the old joke. So that's what this comic is, basically, is illustrating that story. As if it's oh, I see, my old coworker Andrew actually gets a story credit. So, hey, Andrew, if you're out there and you see this and you want this page, hit me up, let me know. Haven't heard from you in years. Not that I expected. Hope you're doing well, though. Okay, we're almost near the end of Group B. This is a fun one, another Kurtzman-esque, called Voice Maul, and it's about being on hold. And it starts with a 3-panel top tier, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like an eye chart. Until eventually we are dead. We never got off of hold. Just like in life. Anyway, again, not the most brilliant drawing, but not bad either, considering. There's some fun. I think my favorite tier is here at the end of this one. I'm starting to get suicidal. I've got a gun to my head. I try to fire here. It goes click. I look at it. It doesn't work. I point it at the phone. Click, 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 click. It doesn't seem to work, so I throw it away, and then it fires over my head. Comedy. Oh, Harvey would be proud. I think Harvey Harvey might have still been alive at this point. I don't know. I used to cut my pages from larger pieces of Bristol, and you can see how I at the bottom of this one, I hacked it right the fuck up. Sorry for the swearing. All right, last one, but not least. In fact, I'd say it's one of the best. This one is called Inspiration. And it is, let me see now, 5 by 6. It's 45 panels with no gutters. And it's basically a story about starting with inspiration, being a young artist, maybe getting some mentorship, experiencing various types of heartbreak as you move through the business, becoming something of a teacher yourself, and trying to pass on the idea of loving what you're doing as being part of the process, not just doing it for money, not just doing it for some other reason. That's basically what this was about, was the various reasons that one might find themselves making art. And that there's nothing wrong with, commercial art, fine art, personal art, abstract art, whatever art you want to make. It's just that some are going to be better suited in different places than others, right? And you have to find what makes you happy and find what balance makes you happy. It's another silent one. Everything is spoken in kind of icons. There's like very influenced by Scott McCloud at that time, probably. So that is Group B. I will take another break, and then we'll dive into Group C. See you.